Danny Mo Morris, Session 2.
We're going to take an original composition of mine that has a number of chords. I'm going to teach you a little bit about harmony, arpeggios, also how to work out composing the bass part with the knowledge of those chords in your musicianship toolbox, so to speak. So arpeggios up and down the neck, ideas in terms of thinking number theory to the chords. That might be new to you, but we'll take from the major scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and build chords that coincide with the chords of this song to help you organize your parts. We'll also have a look at the kick drum pattern. It's a 4-bar pattern, and to realize what's happening there, either play identical to the kick or have a conversation with the kick. And I think that's going to inspire the way you compose your sentences, really, which is what a bass part is. Taking from the rudiments all the ingredients and mix them up together into your own unique bass part. That's the concept we're going for here.
Interpretation of it. Once again, understanding the basic rules though. Again with the kick drum, same with the kick drum. Playing with it or against it. He calls going against it, having a conversation with it. This is something that I'm going to definitely have to learn how to do and understand. And with the bass groups, Ed Friedland's bass groups, have a feeling these two guys are Ed Friedland and Danny Mo Morris are very like kindred spirits here, because I've only watched the first session here, but from what I've read in the bass grooves, when he talks a lot about the stylistic grooves, they're talking about the same thing, and I would bet that by continually studying this stuff, everybody's talking about the same thing. There's an underlying understanding of what it is to be playing the bass and how to make things function. Create space. Don't get into other people's way. Don't clog the space. Don't fight for it. And so he's talking about understanding the kick drum, knowing your part, taking a bird's eye view, as he calls it. It's all stuff that I'm really starting to intellectualize and understand, but putting it into practice is going to take years and years of practice. So let's keep going.
Because only you can play like you, and
yes,
we all have the rudiments to work with, but it's how we go about it. Also add timbre to that mix, your sound. We're going to bring all of these
feel
components
dynamics,
to
all of
musicianship
Victor
into learning this original song.
10 elements of music, which 9 of them are about groove. This is beautiful. It's left-hand muting technique.
It's an original tune that I'm still finishing, but I like the chord progression. It takes from a lot of gospel music, some classical thrown in with some diminished chords, and rounds out to a loop, a tag ending where it's a repeated section. I play around
Repeated
a lot
rhythms.
on piano here, which helps my bass playing in the long run. Anytime I'm gigging with a good piano player and I hear something cool, I'll ask them, "Man, what'd you just do?" And I'll come home and work on a voicing. So and that helps my bass playing. I know here we're talking about creating parts in this lesson, but it's also good for you to understand your chords. This progression starts out with a diminished chord, which is kind of a cool chord. It's based on minor thirds. So if I scale up the neck, you know, G is the chord, diminished. So G up to the minor third, up a minor third again to D flat, up a minor third again to E.
I've studied
minor
quite a
third
bit of
again
harmonic theory and understand
G,
it quite well
you know,
for
so
a
you
guy
get
who
this
doesn't know how to
sound,
play bass.
Sound like from a cartoon or
I
something.
still need a lot of practice to be able to do
And
it.
that settles
but,
into a G sus
understanding
chord,
this stuff
into a
is
G dominant
not the
chord.
problem.
So if this is new to you,
It's not
chordal
new.
language,
Not
it might
new.
be something for you to check out because it will enhance your overall musicianship, and that in turn will enhance your bass playing. So quite often, if a song has moving chords, I'll make the bass part simple because there's already some activity, you know, lots of color going on in the harmony changing. So consequently, the bass part, I'll just sit on the root. So here we have G diminished, going to G sus, going to G7. We have all those chords. Again, G diminished.
I still got a lot of work to do with putting it,
G sus4,
playing
maybe
all
right from the root,
these chord
fourth,
tones all over the
fifth.
fretboard.
and then you know when you're working on
And
your
reharmonization and stuff
your
like that.
arpeggios, don't
That's
just stay in
that's
one
above
register.
me right now.
The arpeggios are
But
cool to build
I can
all the way
understand
up the
it.
neck.
Yeah,
Octave,
it's just muting
fifth,
everything, eh? Muting
fourth,
everything. I should put a sock in there.
fifth, fourth, root. And you know, take two different roads going up. Here I'm going to scale up the E string. This is for the sus4 chord now. G sus4, root, fourth, fifth, root, fourth, fifth, root. And then maybe I'm going to come down on the G string, root, fifth, fourth,
Yeah,
root,
the other,
fifth.
the course
fourth,
on harmony here on
root.
SPL is amazing for this.
The other cool thing is timbre, to think about the sound
Yeah.
quality that you're going to get out of your instrument. I find on this bass, which is set up, these are fairly new flatline strings,
Flat wound, that's what I got.
but it's still kind of dull and thuddy, which is the sound I like. The C here has one timbre, and the C on the E string has another timbre. In the room here, this C fills up the room a little bit more. This one has a nice even sound. This is bigger, you know, you can rattle the ceiling. So that's a consideration too as you work on your arpeggios around the neck. Then when we get back into the music,
Probably road length.
I'm hearing these chords. Again, having worked them out on the keyboard, or I recommend if you play some guitar too, try to work out your voicings, learn some chords and some inversions from somebody whose principal instrument is guitar. Just learn a few chords. It'll really help the way you hear music. So let's start this track up again, and I'm going to take
This
you
I have to
more through the arpeggiation of the chords. Okay, here we go. there, I took you through the diminished chord, to the sus, see, root, 4, 5, and you could chromatically approach anything. You know, from listening to, I certainly do love James Jameson's playing on all the Motown hits, and he would use chromatic approach, you know, from one tonality to the next.
Funk Brothers.
Here's the fourth, here's the fifth. So as a bass line, see how that works? You take the key ingredients of the chord, root, fourth, fifth, and now throw in a chromatic approach. Okay? And then after that chord's done, we had a G dominant chord. So here's a dominant chord. So I was up here, so now I'm going to descend.
Yeah, chord progression stuff I'll have to work with.
Again, it's worthwhile for you to practice your arpeggios because you can work them into your bass line. You know, the concept is a great bass line overall. That's the finished product. But in terms of your ingredients and how you get there, there's no substitute for practicing your chord arpeggios and getting them into the sound of your head. Okay? So
Phil, man.
I'm going to do a track now, playing along with this song, more arpeggiating the
Such a
chords.
nerd.
And then following that, we'll get back into an overall bass drum connection to the pocket. And that's more right hand concept. So here's going to be one take through arpeggiating many of these chords.
Nice.
There was a lot of notes. If there was someone singing above that, or maybe guitar playing a melody, I bet I would be more reserved. But as a way to practice the harmony through all the chords there, arpeggios come in handy.
Playing
And
glass,
you might even be able to
more
use
action going on. If it's
some of those
busier with the
arpeggios
singer and
in the
guitar
context of
player
your
and
bass
everything
line.
else.
There's one section
Fill less space.
where I do what's called a
Create
3-6-2-5-1 change.
space.
So
6-5-1.
if number theory is new to you, check this out. I think it'll make sense. We're in the key of G.
I got it.
Here's your 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's your major scale. Okay. 1, 2, 3. So there's my 3. I'm going to arpeggiate a 3 major chord. Okay. Here's my 6. Here's my 2. And here's my 5. Okay. You see, I mentioned timbre. My go-to way to play is to use a left-hand mute concept.
I noticed that, Mr.
You know,
Morris.
Scott has that going on with his glove. I use these 3 fingers to mute, and that's the sound that I like to portray with my bass playing. So if I finger that 5 chord, 5 major, D major, revert to the left hand mute.
You gotta play less.
It's a different color, it's a different vibe on the music. And that's exclusively up to you how you want to portray the sound color that you have. It starts up with a concept in your head, in your ear. So I'd recommend messing around with left hand technique. Some people do a right hand palm mute.
Yeah, this is easier. Wow.
To perpetuate that, you'd have to strengthen your thumb. But certainly the mute comes from this. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm more comfortable with my fingers, so it's going to sound stronger this way for me. And you know,
you
to
really
achieve the
you
color.
really
That's
gotta
the
be
sound that
parallel
I
with
like
that,
putting out there. So again, here's this 3, 6, 2, 5, all major chords. And then it goes to this section. Okay? Now, when you repeat a pattern, your bass playing
I end up
is
playing,
going to
like,
settle into the
one finger.
music. I think of the word transparent. It really doesn't stick out. At that point, the piano playing's sticking out. Maybe we could put a guitar solo over that or a vocal. So when you do a repetitive pattern, your part sinks back, it's transparent, it'll work in the mix. So much so that if you do one little change up of embellishment, that will be your fill. You don't have to do anything too much when you're playing repetitive parts. And when you think about it, so much groove music has repetitive bass parts. All right? Now we have the
Repeated
arpeggios,
rhythms.
we have some of the chords explained. Now let's have a look at the kick drum pattern to this song. Okay? It's a 4-bar phrase. I just use the note G. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and.
Hey, hey, internet. That was a long rest.
That's the 4-bar phrase. And at the end of the 4-bar phrase, a hi-hat's going to open up. Okay? Let's have a listen just to make.
Yeah, you gotta learn more. You gotta again with Ed Friedland's bass grooves,
Maybe the
learning
first
about
8 bars of
drums and
music
drum parts,
and,
listening to
and
them and
defining them.
understanding how they function with the bass is huge, man. I mean, especially for a massive beginner like myself.
You hear the hi-hat at the end of the 4-bar phrase. Here's the hi-hat.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's obvious.
Coming to an understanding with your drummer on how you want to shape the music. I'm often thinking of buying.
The internet, Mr. Internet. Oh well.
Binary form,
Study more about you.
2s, 4s, 8s, 16s, in terms of dividing the music. I love looking at it that way. Yet, part of me doesn't want to be so calculated to the point where I'm a prisoner to it. Because if you're just sensing that the music wants a little push, a little something, well, maybe in bar 3 you're going to do a fill, and that's completely cool. So now I'm going to put a bass part to the song with that kick drum pattern in mind, and that's going to inspire my bass playing. Okay, so we have the chords, we have the arpeggios, but I'm really going to hunker down and settle in with that kick. So here we go.
This is the key for what I'm trying to do here in last month, is understanding this. I hear snares.
to the kick drum pattern. It's nice having that hi-hat on the end of the fourth bar. It brings it back. So I did a fill right before that. The hi-hat answers it. It's very
Scott also
conversational.
talks a lot about
And,
those, the
you know,
last N and the last
it makes the music
fourth.
Each take is different. I love playing music that way.
Four of the end of the bar, I suppose.
You know, if someone calls a
Fourth bar.
song every night of the week,
confused.
I look forward to playing it every night of the week, and it's going to be a different version every night. So I think with music, it's cool to live in the moment and just create on the spot. I mean, that's really the meaning of improvisation.
Where music
to,
is.
to, you know, play something brand new, to invent something brand new. And with bass playing, that's cool, as long as everybody is at a general understanding of what
it is
intention
you're
you
doing.
want with the music. So here, I'm the kind of player that's staying down here. My good friend Whit Brown, a longtime colleague, teacher, he calls this the cash register.
Yeah,
And
heard that
I agree.
before.
This is where the bass is worn out. So, you know, they're the money notes down here. Again, when you work through your arpeggios, sure. I mean, you have all these notes on the instrument.
Of course,
Work
when you're
through
playing
them,
down
you know,
there, you gotta
G
play a bit
major.
less. You gotta play. Yeah, you gotta play less. I mean, you're not playing
Okay.
a whole bunch of
1,
like
3, 5
16th notes
octave.
up there.
Am I going to use all these notes? Maybe at some point, but in this song, it felt cool to hunker down here in the cash register.
And the cash
Yeah.
register, ching ching. Alright, that was lesson 2. I'm gonna keep going, but I won't put anybody through the misery of them watching me watch something. But hey, well, why not? Alright, cheers. That was a good lesson.